Ever notice how life's best stories don't happen in your living room? They happen on the open road, out on the water, or parked under the stars. At Progressive, they get that you want to focus on the experience, not worry about the what-ifs. That's why they offer quality insurance designed for your ride, whether that's a boat, RV, or motorcycle. Adventure with confidence. Visit Progressive.com and see how easy it is to protect your favorite way to get away. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in D.C. Prices vary based on how you buy.
You've got social dialed in. Search is doing its thing. So why do your marketing results look the same as 6 months ago? That's because you're fishing in the same pond as everyone else. Podcast listeners are a different audience entirely. More engaged, harder to reach through traditional channels, and ready to act when someone they trust makes a recommendation. We're Acast, and we put them right in front of you. Browse thousands of the world's leading podcasts, book host reads or run your own ads, and track every conversion in real time. Same skills you already have, brand new results. Acast. Acast.com/advertise.
All new drinks are now at McDonald's. Like the strawberry watermelon refresher, the mango pineapple refresher with popping boba, and the Sprite berry blast topped with cold foam. Who knew ice cold drinks could be so fire?
The sun's out, and so is our new drink lineup. From the Blackberry Passion Fruit Refresher to the Dirty Dr. Pepper. And they all pair perfectly with some fries. Refreshers contain caffeine. Va-da-ba-ba-ba.
Do you keep hearing podcast ads, like this one, for example, but always wonder how you actually get involved with them for your own brand or organization? Well, it's easier than you think. We're Acast, and we give you the platform to do it all yourself. Browse thousands of popular podcasts, choose the shows that match your perfect audience, set your budget, and launch. And if you want a hand, our podcast specialists are there to help you launch with confidence. This is podcast advertising without barriers. Get started at acast.com/advertise.
Yes, it's that time of year again. Hello, I'm Sarah, and welcome to the first day of 14 days of summer fear. I've got 2 stories to share with you today, and I'll get straight into them. Are you ready for the first story? I had an entity attached to me for 5 years, and it was all my fault. After reading a recent thread on here about real experiences, I decided that it's time for me to finally write this in case it is helpful to anyone experiencing something similar. Sometimes when you flip a switch, you can't unflip it. When I was 24 years old, spring-summer 2000, I was collecting and reading a lot of books on the occult, philosophy and religion. I don't know why. I was just drawn to it. And the local used bookstore was, probably still is, full of that stuff. I read everything I could get my hands on, based on some common themes among the material I read. I started trying to manifest things in my life with pure intention, and this became a habit over a few months. One morning, while I was having coffee with a friend, she drew something on a napkin and pushed it across the table to me. I asked what it was, and she said, "It's your aura. You're on fire." I asked, "Is that good?" She said, "I'm not sure. This is just what I see." So I asked her if she saw these a lot, and she said, "Yeah, sometimes, but not like this." I thought, okay, weird, but that it's just her thing, not mine. But maybe it means I'm on to something. I went through a dark time that year due to a very hurtful breakup. Emotionally, I was a wreck. By late summer, this feeling of manifesting things was so familiar that it was just second nature. Not that it ever did anything, until that one night. My intention invited something in when I was feeling weak, and I immediately knew that I had made a mistake. The next day, I donated all of my occult books to the public library and tried to mentally, cleanse my thought patterns of that intention. But it was too late. By then, I had a persistent feeling that there was something with me, something bigger than I was. Tall, thin, or maybe more accurately, spindly, dark, shadowy, or wispy. Always at the corner of my sight, or sometimes feeling that it was standing right behind me, even leaning over me, like when I was cooking. It didn't seem as bad when I was outdoors or with a group of people. But that summer, I spent a lot of time alone. I got used to it always being there, that feeling of a thing being close, almost like a constant fight or flight response. Around the time I was reading the occult books, I had also started a dream journal. I had suffered from sleep paralysis, runs in the family on my mother's side. My intent was merely to remember more about my dreams. I felt this was important for some reason. In fact, it isn't. This came with side effects though. While it became much easier to remember my dreams, it also induced lucid dreams and eventually out-of-body experiences as I was trying to fall asleep. These experiences were all terrifying to me. I have a totally different wild story about that. But I don't want to get off topic. Let's just say that just because it is a lucid dream, or an OOBE, it doesn't mean you're the one driving. Several nights in a row, I saw it clearly, as I was on the edge of an out-of-body experience. By this, I mean that 1 minute I'm lying in bed with my eyes closed, falling asleep, and the next moment I'm separated from my body by a very small distance, maybe an inch or so, and I don't have any eyes that I can close. And so I see it there, above me, a pitch black, somewhat shiny thing coalescing from. I don't know if tendrils is the right word. Maybe threads, strands, that's the word, coalescing from black strands above me. And from that, I went straight into sleep paralysis. For 3 nights in a row this happened. Same experience, repeated, to the point that I didn't want to sleep. But of course I could only put sleep off for so long, working 2 part-time jobs, and trying to get to classes in the morning. But that 3rd night, something different happened. Right when I was on the verge of sleep paralysis. But while I was in that out-of-body stage, something else came in and chased the entity off. It was smaller and brighter, and instead of sleep paralysis, I sunk back into my body and slept deeply that night, waking up refreshed. Did the entity go away? Definitely not. I could feel that it was still around, but it seemed like it would rarely try to get close after that encounter. After a few years, I had nearly forgotten about it. The out-of-body experiences and lucid dreams stopped, but the sleep paralysis continued as it always had. Time passed and I moved out of state for work to the New Orleans area. One late night in 2003, my then girlfriend woke me up and said, "It's staring at you from the doorway." Now, I hadn't told her anything about my experiences years before, but I knew exactly what she was talking about. I didn't say a word that night, but the next morning she brought it up at breakfast. She told me that she could see demons and angels, and that her grandmother could as well. She made it clear that by demons and angels, she didn't necessarily mean in the Christian sense. Her family's religion was some mix of Christianity, maybe Catholic, and I don't want to say voodoo, but that is just the closest label that comes to mind. Now that I think about it, I wonder if it even had a name, some family folk religion or something. Anyway, she pressed me about why that one was following me around, and so I told her my story. She then demanded that I see her mum so she could perform some sort of ritual on me with an old book. Not a Bible, but something equivalent for them. I declined the offer, and suddenly I was single again. A few more years passed, a number of traumatic events occurred in my life, and I fell into a deep depression. I moved back to the Midwest and started seeking again, but differently this time. Through a series of random events, I ended up participating in a really intense week-long retreat hosted by an Indigenous group in Ontario. The format was based on coming-of-age ceremonies and included a full week of fasting, challenges, a lot of purification or cleansing rituals, culminating with a sweat lodge and feast. I was all in mentally, spiritually, emotionally. It was a grueling but rewarding experience. At the end of the week, when I exited the sweat lodge, an elder put a hand on my shoulder and asked me to sit on a rock. This was a fully nude retreat, and I was literally covered with mud and dirt by this point. But that is beside the point, and I don't know why I'm telling you this. And handed me a bottle of water. He asked me, "How do you feel?" I said, "I think I almost died in there." He nodded. "Yeah, I think you did too. You're weak now. That's why I want you to sit here and rest. There was something feeding on you. Probably been there a long time. That's why you feel weak. But you're lighter now. It's gone." He motioned with his hand like a bird flying off. This is why we call on the spirits of our grandfathers to watch over us and protect us from harm. A few minutes of idle chit-chat, and then, "Feeling better now?" I nodded. Then he smiled. "Let's go eat." And I did feel lighter. Ever since then, that feeling of something dark hanging around me has been gone. The retreat spurred a spiritual awakening in me. And although I haven't participated in anything quite like that since then, I did turn my mental, physical, and spiritual health around, with therapy, a gym routine, distance running, healthy diet, and yoga. And of course, since I couldn't help myself, I dabbled in every form of yoga I could find an instructor for, including Kundalini, which opened up yet another terrifying spiritual experience. But that is another story altogether, with a similar moral. I apparently didn't learn my lesson the first time, but fortunately this one had no long-term repercussions. This took a long time to write, and I'm sorry about all of the meandering, but I wanted to report my experience as it happened. My point is, my experience says that it is possible to open a door that you can't close on your own. I had multiple opportunities to receive help in dealing with this, but I passed most of them up by being in denial. Please be careful with your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. To this day, I still keep white sage on hand for when I feel like I need to cleanse my house or myself. Although I only felt that I've really needed it one other time since then. Just a few disclaimers. I live on land that was ceded by coercive means from the Anishinaabe. I have no Indigenous heritage, and although I do my best to be careful about cultural appropriation, I don't always know exactly where that line is. The retreat I went to was fully licensed from, endorsed by, and facilitated by a First Nation tribe. I did my best to describe it faithfully, but it was nearly 20 years ago. My memory isn't perfect. And by the time I left that sweat lodge, I was in an altered state of mind. So I paraphrased to the best of my recollection. The sage I use at home is either bought from vendors at local powwows or grown in my herb garden. The gratitude I feel to the facilitators of that retreat is real. A lot going on in that first story. I'm really intrigued by the folk religion. I wonder what that was. I want to know more about people's folk religions and their folk magic because I'm so into it. I just find it really interesting. And when I watch it on TV, you know, like some of these practices, when they do the equivalent of an exorcism and they sort of crack an egg over your head and then take the demon away, and I'm just really, really interested in it. Glad it all got resolved in the end, and hopefully it won't come back. Are you ready for the second and final story? Scary encounter in the woods. I can remember almost every little detail of this crazy encounter my friend and I had in the woods. It still sends shivers down my spine when I think about it. Back in May of 2020, when COVID first shut all the schools down, I was a senior in high school, and my friend and I would hang out at their house almost every day. His friend lived in a nice small town in South Jersey, and in a very small neighbourhood. The neighbourhood was really just two side streets that connected at the top and made a rectangle. Behind it was all woods, with no houses in sight for miles and miles, except for one small side trail that led to another small neighbourhood, off to the right of this one. One night around mid-May, we were chilling, and I remember seeing a skateboard in their garage and wanting to learn how to ride one. So we grabbed it and went to the back connected street right at the wood line. There was a small hill in the road, so I could get some practice. When we got to the hill, which was only like a 2-minute walk, I noticed a path in between two houses on the back street and was curious about what the trail was. I kept practicing, going down the hill, and ended up hitting the smallest pebble known to mankind, fell and fractured my wrist. Fast forward a day, and the following night I brought up that path into the woods and asked my friend if they had ever been back there. Their response was somewhere along the lines of, "Yeah, I go for walks back there at least twice a week." We both thought it would be a fun little adventure, but all I can say now is it was going to be the complete opposite. We both brought small handheld flashlights and didn't use them until we passed both houses on each side of the trail entrance. Like I mentioned earlier, there was a side trail that led to another neighbourhood, and we didn't feel like going there, so we decided to go off trail and go deeper into the woods. Another decision that would later turn on us. After walking deeper in for about 5 minutes, we heard what sounded like something crunching a bunch of leaves in front of us. We both stopped and shone our lights in that direction and saw nothing, both thinking it was a deer or something. After that, we decided to go in a new direction, away from the crunching noises. Another 5 minutes passed, and we heard the same crunching noise in front of us again. We shone our lights again and saw nothing, and at that moment, it started to rain slightly. Both of us, being a little creeped out, knew something or someone was down there with us. I had a bad feeling, and quietly said we needed to get out of there ASAP. But our dumbasses went off the path twice, and when we finally got back on the original path, all I remember was hearing the same crunching noises of sticks and leaves behind us. At that point, it started to rain pretty hard, and we began speed walking. The next second, I decided to turn around, and all I saw were 4 flashlights coming right at us, almost running. That's when we started full-on sprinting, and somehow managed to run right past the exit of the trail, back to the road in the neighbourhood. We were about to try and climb one of the house's giant fences to get out of there, but me having a fractured wrist wasn't going too well with that. So the only other option was to run back toward where the lights were, and surprisingly, they weren't there. They were gone. We got a small sense of relief, but were still pretty freaked out. I ended up being the first one off the trail onto the road, and my friend decided to casually walk out. I kept telling them to move faster, and then the next second, all I saw were 4 separate flashlights running again, coming up behind my friend. That's when I yelled for them to run, and luckily they did. I remember full-on sprinting down the street, and when we went around the corner, I turned around to see what looked like 3 to 4 people standing near the entrance, not moving. I could mainly see them from a dim streetlight that gave off just enough light to make out some figures. We ran back to their house, locked the doors, and finally felt relief knowing we were safe. To this day, I refuse to ever go near that trail again, and still wonder who those people were and what their intentions were. My friend and I started talking and trying to figure out who they could have been. If they were cops, they would have announced themselves. And why would they be deep in the woods with no cop cars around? That immediately ruled them out. No one followed us back there from the point where the noises were first heard in front of us. It couldn't have been another group coming from the side of the trail because we would have seen them. Whoever it was most definitely already down there before we arrived and had to have been watching us for quite some time. Not a single word was spoken by them, and they were chasing us. I still strongly believe to this day that whoever they were, they definitely didn't have good intentions if they had actually gotten to us. Sorry, this might be a lot, but I haven't really talked about it with many people out of fear of judgment or something else. Though I'm here now, sharing a real scary encounter we had in the woods.
Quick question. When was the last time a display ad changed your mind? Now think about the last time a friend told you about something they loved. Different feeling, right? That's how podcast advertising works. A host who's built real trust with their audience talks about your brand in their own words, in their own voice. It doesn't interrupt the experience. It's part of it. With Acast, you can access the world's largest podcast marketplace. Choose the right shows, the right audiences, the right format. Then watch the data tell you it worked. You're not buying impressions. You're buying influence. Learn more by visiting acast.com/advertise.
Not necessarily paranormal, but something in the woods. That just freaks me out, especially not making any noise, apart from the footsteps. But no talking and just kind of following. There really was something going on there. There had to be. Because that behaviour just isn't usual. Even if you're, hunting or whatever, you can have some chit chat because you're not actively hunting at that moment if you're following people. Those type of things in the woods, I've said this a million times, other people in the woods freak me out. If I just come across them and they give me a bad vibe, I find that really freaky. Because people, them's evil. Well, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you again tomorrow. Take care, everyone.
Here's a tip for you. There's a podcast out there with fans waiting to be your next customer. They tune in every week, they trust the host, and that host wants to talk about brands like yours in their own words to their audience. The problem is, you just haven't been introduced yet. We're Acast, where that introduction happens. As the world's largest podcast marketplace, we let you browse shows, see who's listening, and book host-read sponsorships or run your own ads, all from one platform. Transparent pricing, real-time data, complete control. Start advertising on podcasts by visiting acast.com/advertise.
The stories told on the Whispering Woods are inspired by historical records, witness reports, and local folklore. While every effort is made to research and represent events accurately, some details, names, and locations may differ from official accounts or have been changed out of respect for those involved. These episodes are created for storytelling and entertainment purposes and should not be considered definitive fact or investigative journalism.